I hope that these preventative measures and tips and tricks on how to fix things have helped you somehow today with starting your seeds. Good morning and welcome to Wholesome Roots. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the main issues you might run into with starting seeds. While there are multiple problems that you can encounter when starting your own seeds, there's a few that fall into some of the same causes. So the three biggest causes for issues with starting seeds is going to be moisture, whether it's too much or too little, lighting, not enough, and timing, starting them too early or not separating and thinning them out when needed. So let's start with timing. This is an issue that I see come up quite often. Is gardeners are very excited to plant in the middle of winter, but if you start your seeds far too early, you're going to be dealing with plants that are kept in pots that are too small, that need to be potted up, and that get too big before you need to plant them out. So one of the things that you need to make sure you do is figure out your last frost date for your area, plug it into our handy dandy seed starting guide for spring that I have attached down below, and you can access that through Google Docs. You just go to this link that I provide and you select file and make a copy. You just make your own copy, then you're able to edit it however you want. You can change the frost-free date to your own frost-free date, and all the calculations will be done for you on when you should sow which vegetable, herb, and flower seeds that are most commonly found in the garden. Something that's kind of related to timing of when you start your seeds is something that a lot of people don't usually talk about, I noticed, is that some seeds you're much better off not starting inside before you plant them out. Things that don't like their roots disturbed, things that don't need the extra start. So I'm just going to caution again, even though I said it in the seed starting video, root veggies, not a good one to transplant. Any of the squashes, cucumbers, corn, none of those need to be started early. Beans, peas, root crops, leaf crops, all of these can be started outside in your garden on the proper date. So if it's a cold hardy plant like peas, hardy greens, and roots, you can start them, depending on your zone, as early as February. And you can start them by direct sowing them right into your garden. You don't have to start them indoors and worry about how well you need to take care of them. You can let Mother Nature do most of it. And then things like nasturtiums, sunflowers, squash, and cucumbers, those all do much better if you direct sow them directly into the ground. They don't appreciate being transplanted all that much, and they do not benefit from being started early. So go ahead and plant those after your last frost date. My seed guide has more information if you're interested in knowing which to direct sow and which not. So say you've already started too early and your plants are starting to get big and you have maybe more than one seed that came up per cell. You're gonna need to thin those out. By thinning out the seeds, it gives them the proper air circulation that they need to be healthy, and it gives them a chance to reach the light. So one of the most common procedures to do with this situation is to just pinch or cut out. So if you have a fingernail or a thumbnail, you can just pinch it off at the soil line, or you can take a pair of scissors and cut them out. Or you can take them, once they have the second set of leaves on them, you can take them out of their cell, gently separate the roots, and repot them into separate containers. If you wait too long, the roots will become so entangled that you won't be able to separate them apart. So make sure you do this real early on before it becomes an issue. Another question that I see that comes up a lot is, what about fertilization of seedlings? Well, the beauty of a seed is how it contains all of the life force that that plant needs to get a start without worrying about fertilization. The entire seed body has all of the food that plant needs while it's developing its first set of leaves. So when you see the first leaves come out, those aren't true leaves. Those are cotyledons, and they're there just to help support the plant and get it started, and they're gonna help provide the extra food that's needed to develop the first set of true leaves. After your second set of true leaves have formed is when you would want to possibly begin fertilization. But the biggest misconception people have is that plants need to be fertilized on a regular basis. That's actually not usually the case. Your seed starter mix is usually containing just the right amount of nutrients for those plants to get them started. Now, if you have some plants that have to be potted up and have gotten bigger, you might consider doing a dilute manure tea or fish emulsions in a light watering to help them if they show deficiency. Most of the time, they won't show any deficiencies as seedlings before you get a chance to plant them out. Honestly, in my 20 years of gardening, I don't think I've ever had to fertilize my seedlings. Now, I often do add a nice general all-purpose fertilizer to my garden beds before planting, or I add manure to my garden beds that's been composted. So those things help me from having a deficiency in the first place. So another really big common issue that I'm seeing is that a lot of people are dealing with leggy plants. What is a leggy plant? When you start your seed and you are not providing the full spectrum of light that they need, they can start trying to stretch their stem out, and it will get longer and longer because the plant's trying to find sunlight. So even if you have a south-facing window that gets a lot of sun, you may have to provide additional light source because those plants really need 16 to 18 hours of sunlight. Generally, even a south-facing window is only going to get 6 hours of light. If it's your only choice and that's all you have, then make sure that you actually rotate your seed tray at least twice throughout the day so that all of the seeds get the right amount of sun without having to stretch towards the window. If you're using grow lights, you can set them on a timer, either 16 or 18 hours on and the others off. And you can also make sure that you put your seed light within an inch of the leaves, an inch or two at the max. As the plants get larger, you can raise the light with the height of the plant. Another thing that people will do to keep the plant stem strong and sturdy and not long and stretched out is to have a fan in the room. We are able to open our door to our seed room that allows the breeze to come through here and allows the leaves to move, increasing the strength of the stem. So what do you do if you already have leggy plants? Well, the most common plant that people are growing indoors, I would say, would have to be tomato plants. And if it's tomato plants that you're having the leggy issue with, you're in luck. They do very well being transplanted all the way up to the top of the first set of leaves when you transplant them. This is because tomatoes will grow roots all along their stem. They root very easily from stem cuttings. So if there's other plants that you're growing from seed that root very easily from stem cuttings, then you can likely bury those as well. Things like marigolds and tomatoes. Even peppers can do well if you are careful. A lot of times people will go ahead and transplant their leggy plants and plant them deep, no matter what the species is. But you must be careful at this stage because some of these seedlings actually do very poorly if their stem is buried. And it's better to keep them at the proper soil line that they were grown at to begin with. The next and last biggest issue that we're seeing in starting seeds is not having the proper moisture level. So having it too dry will cause seeds to not germinate. Having it too wet will cause seeds to rot and not germinate. So it's really important that you keep the soil damp but not dripping wet. Bottom watering is the best method I can recommend. Also, being sure that you use a mister when you're watering your seeds. If the top does dry out in between watering, that's actually a good thing. That can help prevent any fungus from growing on the surface of the soil. Another huge thing that I mentioned in my seed starting video is to sprinkle cinnamon all across the surface of your soil. This helps prevent any fungus from growing, as cinnamon is antifungal. As you can see in the seed trays behind me, I've just added an extra layer of cinnamon. I buy the cheapest generic cinnamon that I can find for this use, so that it's not an extra cost for my garden. And make sure you reapply it as it becomes invisible, because after watering on top, if you're using the watering on top method, it will wash away. The cinnamon trick is really awesome because it helps prevent dampening off, which is one of the #1 things that happens to seedlings that have been kept too wet and fungus allowed to grow. Another big issue I see a lot of people having is fungus gnats, and the fungus gnats can be prevented by starting out with cinnamon. But another big thing that it's important to note is that if you start with the proper seed starting mix, you more than likely won't have any fungus gnats. All of the seed starting mixes have been heat sterilized to make sure that there are no fungus gnat eggs in the soil. Now, some of the bigger bags of potting soil and other types of soil mixes have not been heat treated because they're generally going to be used in outdoor situations where fungus isn't as big of a problem. But when you're planting indoors, the seed starter is much better. Or creating your own recipe with a soilless mix using peat moss or cocoa fiber, perlite or vermiculite, and a organic compost. Most people use worm castings for this, as they are pretty pure and clean of any of the fungus issues. If your soil seems questionable, you can heat treat it. You can microwave it, you can bake it, you can pour boiling water over it, you can put it into a pressure cooker and cook it. Any of these things will help kill anything that's in there and prevent any of the major fungal issues and fungus gnat eggs from becoming an issue. So if you've already got fungus gnats and they've taken over your soil and you have seeds already growing, you can't do the heat sterilization of your soil. So a real easy way to help with the fungus gnats is to take a 3% hydrogen peroxide. Again, get the cheap stuff from Dollar General to use for your garden. It's gonna work just fine and do the job. And you mix 1 part peroxide with 4 parts water. You can mix it up in a spray bottle to spray across the top of your soil, or you can even put it into a watering can and water the whole tray. Whatever you feel the most comfortable with and works easiest for you. And that will help take care of the fungus gnat issue. Another product that works really well against fungus gnats is a product called BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. And the strain that works best for the fungus gnats is going to be the same one that works for mosquitoes. So if you've seen those mosquito dunks for sale, that's exactly what you're going to use. They also sell it in a granule, which I'm going to link in my garden section on my Amazon storefront so that you guys can get those granules and you can just sprinkle them across the top of your soil or mix them with water to pour the water on. So if you've had any of these problems starting your seeds, remember you're not alone. We all encounter these issues at some point or another in our gardening journey. And don't fret, there's still a chance to rectify the situation and make it better. Or really, a lot of us still have time to just start over. I hope that these preventative measures and tips and tricks on how to fix things have helped you somehow today with starting your seeds. If you missed our seed starting video, I will leave a link down below and you should definitely check it out. We are going to have more valuable learning experiences in this gardening series as the season continues on. So don't miss it. Make sure you ring the bell for notifications so that you won't miss the next video in the series. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, comment down below with any of your questions. I'm more than happy to answer questions all of the time. You can also find us on our Facebook group, Wholesome Roots Farmstead Friends, and ask your questions there. There's a wealth of knowledge that's right at your fingertips. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Wholesome Roots.